this has actually been found around that site, or in my opinion it's been fetched to that site by somebody or at some point, because we can't really say that we're looking at the biggest pyramid complex on Earth, but then at the same time pretend that this is what they were making the tools out of, right? You know, pouring some copper chisels and whatever, yeah, and smeltering crude tools to build the biggest sites on Earth, bigger than anything we've built in modern times. So, you know, this is just ridiculous, and you know, you need to use some common sense when you're looking at this stuff. Just because these things have been pushed as though they've been found at this site doesn't mean that they have. They say this is some type of tile. It could well be. It could have been dropped on that hill at any point in history, or it's fake, right? And it's been made recently. I'm sorry about the size of these first few ones. There's nothing I could do about it. I couldn't make them any bigger than what I have done, because it would make them blurred presenting it in the way that I am. And this was apparently found on one of those pyramid. It's a complex. There's about 3 or 4 of them, and this just looks fake to me. You know, I mean, when you think about how long that thing they talk about it's been there, and how much movement and devastation has taken place, and yet these lines on this just look like they have been spatulaed out, done. I mean, this thing looks like it's been made in a primary school, to be honest with you, about a year ago from when this picture was taken. This is one of the artifacts that they say that there are carved runes on the side of this thing. Well, that's been done very, very recently, hasn't it? So whether or not it's the people, you know, that are pushing this paradigm that come and carve these things out, because I mean they look brand new to me, and then they look like they've had dirt smudged in them. The only thing that makes me think that it might actually be something else is the lines that run around the side of it, right? So what this was, I don't know, but they reckon, as they do with all these artifacts, that there's something to do with resonance and the healing of the mind and things like that. Yeah. If you've ever studied the Bosnian pyramid site and the tunnels, I know everything about it, right? You can't post anything to convince me otherwise than the paradigm I'm presenting now, okay? But they get visitors sat around these things. These are deep inside the tunnels, and they get them sat around holding hands around these things, and make out that they are being healed. Yeah, you know, and they even point spectrographs of some type at them, and they can apparently measure the body's aura after coming out of these tunnels. Apparently, I don't think that means anything. This is the thing that they get on about, isn't it? Healing energy of the Bosnian pyramid complex, and that's obviously fake. So we'll move on from that. To present it being, I suppose this is one of the older ones, because I think they've narrowed it down to about 35,000 years now, right? Yeah, so that's the Bosnian pyramid, and these are the Sumerians and Babylonians, and today, and they can't date anything, can they? It's just guesswork and presenting a paradigm for visitors, and it's just a big money-making complex. That's all it is to me now. And you will see that when I present these pictures after this. I'm just showing you this first. This is the Pyramid of the Sun, Teotihuacan in Mexico, and that's what it looks like before they excavated the Pyramid of the Sun. That's the Pyramid of the Sun. There's a Pyramid of the Moon, and so on, as you know, and it just looked like a mound. Yes. These are the tunnels supposedly under the complex. They make out they find these walls, but Actually, they're just building these things as they go. You can see this is just all flood material. The only thing that would make me think that these were something else is that they've actually got these channels down them, but I think these are made as they tunnel through these. Yeah, and it will filter finer particles down these, or it, you know, it will just naturally carve these channels out. Okay, as the sand runs down the center, it will cut a channel out or something like that. I think it's natural, just like the entire complex is. Yeah, so it's a big area. That's your layout. And that's probably one of the most damaged images of the entire selection. Go inspect this carefully. You can see that this is just all serious flood material. Very strange. And these tunnels, you know, they make out that people were living down here and again using it as some sort of frequency thing and living longer and growing plants higher and all this sort of thing and healing themselves from being sick. Yeah, but these would carve out naturally from seepage of water. Yeah, you know, all this would soak up water from the surface, and that water would have to find its way through channels naturally, and they will carve out channels naturally, right? That's all I think they are. If you think otherwise, that's up to you. The only thing that makes me think otherwise, right, and I can't prove it, but I can explain it in a different way for you, is that the entire main complex, you know, let's say this is the pyramid of the sun, then you've got the moon and dragon, okay, and apparently they are sat in a large equilateral triangle, and if that's true, then it needs explaining, and it can only be explained manually, right, like it's a man-made complex, or has it been something electrical that's pulled these up along these points at some point in the past, right? So it can be explained another way from electrical arcing. And when you look at this image, which is probably the most damning of them all, especially on this first section of images, because there's two, that this is not a pyramid and this is the pyramid of the sun, right, which is actually like 2.5 times bigger than the pyramid of Giza, right? And that's only what's above ground. Is that you can actually see that that is actually shorter, this is longer, so yeah, okay, you could say that this side is buried, but that angle is actually off, and down here there's absolutely nothing, right? Now they say, you know, the people that push this, is that this side has been completely knocked off in some event, whether that was the Great Flood or whatever, and it's been washed down here, yeah? Well, I mean, we can say anything, can't we? I mean, they can't prove it, so they can say it. And this is meant to be the connecting bridge, which I will show you some more of shortly. But they weren't made like this, and why the hammer has been put there is not to show you that these balls were carved out of this rock, right? This rock is the same material as this, because this rock, whatever it was originally, whether an egg or seed or whatever, or came out of the mud, as this was deep under the ocean, and it was pressure that pushed this into a sphere, alright, and then it got sank in this mud, because it looks like mud, ancient mud rock to me. It's not been carved out of here with hammers and chisels, right? And that is what most of it looks like, and the second set of images is really showing you what this thing is constructed of, okay? And that is completely natural. and it's actually got some play in it, it will bend, it won't just crack and break like our concrete, right? So it's a lot harder and it's not as porous. This is always the image that they use to make out that this is actually built from concrete blocks, right? But this is just a tiny section of this pyramid of the sun, and the rest of it is completely different, like I will show you shortly. But I can tell you this much, that no structure in modern times, the last few hundred years, that we have built anywhere on this earth where we are building on a slope, would we ever lay concrete blocks slanted at one on top of each other. You would never do that, ever, right? So that's that. Yeah, so they do make out that most of it has just been poured somehow and just left to just dribble down the side and harden, which is what you're looking at. And most of it again does look natural. The reason why they say that much of this is all broke up like this as they excavated this area is because during the Bosnian War and around that time, people were coming up here with explosives and blowing holes in this hill and using the rubble as binder, grinding it down and using it as building material. Sounds pretty ridiculous. But to the untrained eye, these would look like building blocks, plates, because most people that work on this site are completely untrained and very gullible, right? They have dropped their entire life and just gone to this hill to come digging for this guy. This is what they call the connecting bridge that's on the back side there. This is an excavation around the access ramp, that's what they call it. And this is the same type of concrete, I suppose. Right, and it's like a huge connecting ramp, or it appears to be, it looks like it, but I've just shown you an image that it's not even shaped like a pyramid. Now I will say this also, that one side of it is apparently completely aligned with north, and I mean true north. And so is the Great Pyramid, but the Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia is meant to be more precise, more on line with true north than the Great Pyramid. Now again, could that have come around from something electrical? Because I think that is indeed where we live, right? It's on an electrical plane and it operates on ley lines, and I will leave the rest in your hands. But this guy has got his hands on the money, as you can see,